Welcome to Free Range Flock. We were once the latchkey kids who came home to an empty house after school. We were feral, resilient, cynical, and innovative. Older than Google. Our teenage faces were never posted on social media. The internet was just an idea in our youth. Now we are older, wiser, and thriving. Our independent ways will continue to serve us. We plan to keep defying the odds, and we will carve our own path with grace, with humor, with joy, our way. We've been through some stuff. We will continue to keep pushing, and we are not going anywhere. The former latchkey kids are now the free range flock.
So what's something that you used to love that you found yourself enjoying again recently? It could be anything, like movies or food or whatever, music, whatever.
Oh, okay. So I think I'm going to say art. So, you know me.
I do.
And you know what I do for a living, which is graphic design.
Yeah.
And part of the way I got to graphic design was because I used to be an art major. When I first went to college back in 1983, I'm dating myself, I went in as an art major. And when I was in high school, when I was a little kid, I loved to draw. You know, it was just one of my most favorite things in the whole world. So when I went to college, I thought, I'm going to be an artist.
Oh, gosh.
And so I took 2 semesters, and I had a teacher who did not like my artwork and was not very kind about the way he expressed his opinions to me. And it really hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Because in high school, I always, I've never been Rembrandt. I'm not that kind of artist, but I always enjoyed it. And I felt like I was okay at it. And then when I went to college, it was just like somebody poured cold water over me. And it was very disarming. So I literally walked away from it.
Wow.
For a long time. And then when I was after, I decided I wanted to go back to school and get some more education, I was looking at graphic design because I did have the background with being an art major and an artist in high school. So anyway, all that to say, graphic design is not the same as fine art.
Right.
It's very different.
Right.
And I like to paint, but I haven't done it in years. So I've decided to teach myself how to use a tablet. So
nice.
I am reconnecting with fine art, and I'm trying to do it digitally, which is very different, y'all.
That's Well, you're getting out of your comfort zone. You're learning new things. So that's great. So, but you're finding a way to kind of revisit that love that you had.
Yeah, and it's been very fun. It's also been very frustrating because it's like I'm used to a pencil and paper or a canvas and paint, and here I am like trying to figure out how to do it with my iPad and a digital stylus. So it's very, very different.
Yeah.
And listeners, suggestions, please. If you're doing this, I would love to hear some suggestions.
You figured it out. Let us know. Let us know.
What about you? What are you reconnecting with?
There's lots of different things. One thing that comes to mind is roller skating.
Ooh.
So when I was a teenager, that was like the thing we did. I grew up in North Carolina, and if you were 13, 14, 15, 16, and you couldn't go out to clubs and stuff, you went to the roller rink Friday and Saturday nights, in your blue jeans and your Calvin Kleins and your, you got on skates and you skated and skated and skated and skated till your mom picked you up. You just skated all night long. And I tried to get my son to skate, and the first time he did it, he went around the ring and he was holding on to the sides like, get me off these. He hated it. I was crushed because I was like, I would love to reconnect with this. And then he got invited to a kid's birthday party at skating. And I was like, do you want to go? And he's like, Yeah, I guess I'll go. And that kid got him out, and he saw the other kids out there. And my son is very, extroverted and motivated by seeing other kids doing stuff. So then he fell in love with it. So now I'm like, yes, I finally have a skating buddy. So we are reconnecting with skating, and they still do the same things at the skate rink. They still roll the dice and play, once we go into the limbo, they still play limbo. They still do the things.
Oh, how
They turn off the lights midway and do disco. They do a couples. I mean, they do all the. It hasn't changed since the 80s. It hasn't changed. But I was like, gosh, I haven't done this since I was a teenager, because I never went in there in my 20s and 30s and 40s. I was doing other things. But roller skating is this lovely way to kind of, especially when it's cold outside, to kind of go out there and burn some energy and listen to music. Now, I don't know all the music that they're playing. Like my son, I'll see him saying the words. I'm like, I don't even know who this artist is, but okay, I'm moving, I'm doing it. So there's that. But I love the reconnecting to that thing that I used to love to do.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It really does. It's kind of like it sparks this little bit of energy in you.
Yeah.
When you rediscover something that you love to do when you were a kid or even as a young adult, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I remember why I like to do this.
Yeah, and that's why we want to talk about that today, because there's a lot of nostalgia websites out there and podcasts for all the free rangers. I mean, I enjoy them. I look out there and oh, remember when we did this and this and this, and it reminds us about who we were and things we used to love to do. It's fun to walk down memory lane and reminisce. But it can also be transformative. It's you're picking up those experiences, and it's helping you connect to a sense of yourself, and it can actually pull you through those moments of depression and grief. So, yeah, nostalgia, it's not just something funny to look at or remember, but reconnecting with those things that you used to love to do can pull you out of a slump that other things couldn't do. So it's important. I remember when my dad died, we found a lot of comfort, reflecting back and thinking about those funny stories that he did, and listening to the music that he did, and sharing photos and all that. And that sense of reflecting back and connecting to those old loves and his old loves, it really got us through it, and really made us sharing those stories. I remember when he used to do this, and remember when we were kids and did that. It was a moment in time, but it made us feel better. We had a common experience, and we reflected on it, and it felt good. So have you ever reconnected to something that changed your mindset, Sass?
Yeah, actually, it was interesting you mentioned your dad, because a similar thing happened with my mom when my mom passed. So, because we used to date. We were friends. Yeah, we've known each other for a long time. But I used to belly dance. You were actually the one that got me in the door.
But you were much better than I was. Much better than I was.
The belly dance studio. But that was really an interesting thing, because I was I used to do theater. So when I was in high school and in college, I was part of regional theater and community theater and all of that. So that was a little bit of a reconnection there.
Yeah.
But then after my mom died and I had injured my ankle, I couldn't dance anymore. And so, but my mom was a musician. Multiple people in my family are musicians, but it was so important to her, and it was so instilled in me as a child. And so after she died, I was like, I need something to connect with my past. And so I looked to music. And so that's the whole reason, literally, why I picked up a ukulele, was because music was important to my mom, and so I wanted to bring that back into my life.
So that's why we're talking about that today. So today's episode focuses on reconnecting with old loves. You know what's funny, Sass? When I was thinking about this episode and getting us ready, this podcast is actually a fantastic example of reconnecting with old love.
You are right.
Yeah. So 20 years ago.
Oh, geez.
Can you believe it? I said 20 years. Back in the Stone Ages or whatever. 20 years ago, you and I owned a media company, and we made a ton of programs for our clients. We came up with all this great programming. It was so much fun. And then it got to be too much. So I changed jobs, and it was just too much. And so we sold our equipment and, put it under and whatever. And then I was this year is 2023, And I was going through my office preparing to change jobs again. And I was like, look at all this great programming we created. Look at this great programming. I'm like, wait a minute. I love sitting in a room and being creative with you. Let's do it again. But I don't want to lug around video equipment because I'm older and I don't want to do that. How about we do a podcast? How about we jump into this whole podcast thing? And that's where this whole came about. So right now, this whole thing is an example of reconnecting with your old love. Like, yeah, it doesn't look the same, but, we changed it and we're still being creative and creating media. That's cool.
I think so too. And I think that I agree with you. I feel like we make a really good partnership, both as friends, but also as business partners.
Right.
Because we fill different niches in that need to run a business or run a creative enterprise. So you're really good at the idea part, and I do all of the here, let's make it sound good.
Let's make it sound good. Yeah.
Because I'm the techie person. So. And when I say techie, I mean I'm an editor. I used to be a video editor. So I like telling stories, taking the raw material and adding music to it and making it sound like a narrative. So, and I think that we did it so well then. I was so excited to embark on this. I mean, you and I both are so starved for time, but it's something that's important to both of us. And so
when I asked you, I was like, she's going to think about it. And you're like, yes. You're like, yeah, yes. I'm like, okay, this is meant to be. Yeah. So I like to come up with the ideas and do the research and that kind of thing. And trying my hand at some marketing, although it's kicking my butt. But
marketing is so hard.
Yeah. But yeah, when I was thinking of this episode, I'm like, this whole podcast is an example.
Exactly.
So it's an example of, if you find out what things it's hitting, what are those things you love to do, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it could be something along the same vein. So that's important.
Right, exactly. And that evolution, again, this podcast is a perfect example because people consume media in different ways. And I think that when we had our production company before, we were really thinking about short form videos for the most part, sometimes longer form to go on our local public access station for the nonprofits we were working with. But now I feel like people don't consume television in the same way.
No.
This is another way of reaching an audience in a much more accessible manner.
Yeah, I definitely love doing this podcast. It's definitely allowed me to be creative in lots of different ways.
And allows us to do the thing we love, which is communication, and just talking about what's important to us and hoping that it connects with other people.
Definitely. But as I was thinking about this episode and this topic, I was thinking about how I feel like I'm constantly bringing up and reconnecting with old loves because I'm a parent. I think parents all do this more because your kids are rekindling that love of stuff and bring up stuff. And he's constantly asking me questions like, what did you do when you were this? What did you do? What were you like? And so I'm having to constantly be reflective. But I'm also a film major, so I have my master's degree in film. And so for me, it's been really important to connect my son to old movies, to the movies that I remember, so that because those older movies brought a language that sometimes we refer to now in movies, and if you may not get all the references in the joke without knowing that. So I've been introducing him to some movies. And one of the things that we do, my son and I do, that we love, is we watch movies Christmas Day. So we do the presents, eat the food, and we're playing, but then we're also watching a ton of movies. And this Christmas, we watched 6 movies. When we were down for the count, we were watching movies. And I'm like, you're going to watch some, we do watch some things that we've seen before, but then we also watch things that he's never seen before. So, he's never seen, he wanted to watch Creed. I'm like, you're not going to watch Creed until you watch Rocky, because Creed is part of the Rocky series. And so we watched the very first Rocky, and then I realized, then he started asking questions that's why people say this. I'm like, yes, that's why people say these things. And then the whole training montage, I'm like, this became really common in movies like this where they would speed up time. I can't show you the 6 months of Rocky getting ready for this fight. So instead, in 3 minutes, they played this song that all of you know, and you're hearing it in your voice, in your head right now. And they saw him train really quickly. So it lets you do a span of time really quickly. It's called training montage. And so if you are out there and you're thinking, I'm doing my training montage in my head, you're playing that Rocky music in your head now. And so I'm like, dude, that's why people play that song because of that. So I wanted him to understand that. Now, Rocky wasn't my favorite movies. I just want to reconnect him because great connecting him to movies and great movies is part of my love because I love great movies and I want to share that with him. So yeah, I'm trying to train him on that. So what are you doing now, Sass, when it comes to reconnecting?
Oh gosh. Well, I think going back to the art example, since that's kind of where my head is at right now, I'm watching YouTube videos, which is, sounds weird, but it's kind of, I'm trying to figure out how to use the software, essentially. But that's part of the process.
Yeah.
So it's literally relearning how to use tools in a way to be able to express art in a way that I want to. And right now, I feel like such a baby because I'm literally tracing things. So I'm taking photographs and I'm tracing things because the tools just act different. They, when I shade with a pencil on a piece of paper, I know what to expect with the pressure and the angle of the pencil.
Right.
But when I do that on a digital
tablet
screen, it acts completely differently. And so I'm having to relearn these tools, which has really, really been interesting. So yeah, it's kind of weird. And then because of my ADHD brain, and I think we've talked about this in the past, that when you start a hobby, you want all of the things.
Yes.
So now I'm looking at a better iPad and better tools to be able to do this.
Right.
But the nice thing about a better iPad is it will serve me in other areas of my life. It won't just be for art, but being able to, I could actually do audio editing on it. I could do take it with us to the conference we're going to be going to next year. So it's kind of it'll serve other purposes just besides art.
But I mean, again, that's our big message here is that, now is the time to reconnect to those things that you love to do. And even if you can't do them exactly the same, like if your body can't let you do them the same or your interest does not lie there. Like I couldn't imagine us doing videos again because, I don't know, it just feels like the videos that we made are not things that people watch now.
No.
That people watch very different, like their TikTok brain. They just want to watch something
Little
for short things. Yeah. So yeah, just don't give up on them because it gave you a sense of self and you got a sense of enjoyment from it. Now it's the time to how can I reconnect with things that I used to do that I love? So we talked a bit about things that we're reconnecting with now, like roller skating and movies, and you're reconnecting with your art, and you did dance and music. So those are some of the things that you've been reconnecting with. But looking into the future, what are some things that you used to love when you were younger that you want to do that you haven't done yet, that you want to reconnect with now or maybe in the near future?
That's a really hard question.
Well, while you're thinking, I know my answer. I'll just jump in here.
Well, you just jump right in there because I'm not sure.
That. So, before my son was born, in my 20s and 30s, my thing was travel. I love to travel. I traveled overseas. I lived overseas for a little bit. I lived in a different town. I love to travel and experience new things and just experience new people and I don't need things. I don't want to fill my house full of things. I want to have new experiences. And so I want to reconnect with my love of travel. Now, my checking account's like, whoa, Nellie, you can't go too far. So, because I'm trying to save and, be good and behave. But it doesn't have to be a big expensive trip. It could be this town's an hour away and let's just go and hang out in that town and explore it. It could be that simple. But I used to travel all the time, and I feel like now I've just prioritized, work and, those big adulting things, and I want to rekindle that love of travel, and I want to pass that on to my son too, like how to be a good traveler and how to go somewhere new and be outside your comfort zone. I want to reconnect with that.
I think that's really beautiful, and I would agree with that. I think for myself, travel was different. And always has been a little bit different. I grew up with a camping family, so we used to camp all the time. And I've rediscovered that, I guess, in my adulthood, going and camping. One thing that I would love to do that we did as a kid was go out west. So we went on these long extended travels through we did 2 different loops, 2 different years. And so one was an upper loop, and we went out in Northern California and that Montana and that stuff. And then another year it was the lower loop through Texas and, the lower western states. And as a kid, you don't have a sense of what you're seeing.
Right,
You
right.
really can't appreciate, what an impressive trip that was both times. And I would like to do that as an adult. But there's that whole extended work, because we were literally on the road for 3 to 4 weeks on those trips, because we would drive 8 hours and we'd stop and we'd be there a day or two and then we go and do it again.
Right.
So we were seeing all of these different things, which were awesome, but you can't do that in a week.
Right.
When you take a week off to go on vacation.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you have to do it in little snippets.
Yeah.
And I would love to go back to the Grand Canyon or to Zion or to Arches. I've never been as an adult to Montana,
Me either.
and it's beautiful. Pam went out and did some riding out there a few years ago, and the pictures she brought back were amazing and beautiful, and I would love to see that. I know we went to Montana and Wyoming, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember it because I was 8, and I had my nose in a book. So it was. So I think travel is definitely on my list. I think it's hard because we experience things different
Right.
when we're adults, and so sometimes the nostalgia that I remember recently watching a TV series that I really loved when I was a kid, and then I watched it as an adult, and I was just like, oh, I'm so disappointed. I don't enjoy this anymore. It's just not good.
Yeah, that's been one of the things, connecting my son to old movies and just connecting to old movies, that you watch it and you're like, this doesn't hold up. This isn't great. So, we watched the first Terminator, and that was filmed in what, 80, late 80s maybe?
I think so. I can't remember.
Wow, the special effects. And now my son's like, really, what was that? I'm like, okay. And this was the 80s. That was considered pretty revolutionary, what just happened.
Right.
So yeah, just some of it, but some of the TV shows that you've gone back and watched, it's like, it's not holding up. So yeah, sometimes revisiting it, you're like, why did I love this in the first place? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also just how society has grown and changed, and the cringe, like some of the statements that are made in older TV shows, and you just think, they could never get away with that now.
Yeah.
Or nor would you want them to.
Right.
It's just like we've evolved past that point.
Right.
And yeah, sometimes nostalgia is not such a great thing.
Yeah, we got to be careful. I was showing my son a movie. He's like, Mom, did you realize that everybody's smoking? And I'm like, yeah. And, in the movies especially, because, give them something to do or whatever, people were all smoking. Now you don't hardly see it in movies anymore. It tends to stand out if you do see it.
I mean, there's a warning on movies now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they always put content warnings.
Yeah.
And smoking is one of their tobacco use
Yeah.
is one of the things that they list. And I find that incredibly interesting because growing up in the South, everybody smoked.
Yeah.
And including myself. And so it's just kind of.
I mean, to the point that when we were kids in craft class, we made our parents ashtrays for presents.
Yes!
I
Oh my
remember
gosh.
made several ashtrays from both my mom and my dad because they both smoked. So yeah. And that just blows my son's brain. Like, what? I'm like, kids made ashtrays?
Yeah.
I mean, the entire class sat down and let's make an ashtray. That was one of the
That was the thing. I mean, it was just one of the things you did.
And that's not something you want to go reconnect with.
Although ashtrays
dear.
can be used for so many things besides cigarettes.
They could.
So you can, I mean,
But they
your
didn't.
change, and your jewelry. There's lots of things. I'm.
Yeah. Sometimes you go back and revisit an old love, and that's something we've got to acknowledge. That sometimes you got to try to reconnect. You're like, wow. Or you try a food. Like, I remember eating something. Like, I used to eat something at the time as a kid. Now I'm like, this just tastes like a bowl of sugar.
Interesting you say that because chocolate to me tastes different.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I was obsessed with chocolate. Loved chocolate. I couldn't eat enough chocolate. And now as an adult, chocolate tastes bad.
Yeah.
Like really good chocolate, like Belgian chocolate or stuff that's like high-end chocolate, still good. But like the stuff, Hershey's, like Kisses and Hershey, sorry Hershey, but it's like just not the same.
Yeah, but Americans, I don't remember the actual term of what it is. I was watching this British show, and they were talking about why American chocolate tastes so bad. And it's because there's such a distance between the farm to the table that they put this kind of, I think she said, I'm not even going to try to butcher it, get it wrong. There's something that Americans put in their chocolate to make it preserve and last longer. That when people come over, they're like, this is the nastiest thing because they can taste it.
Yeah.
But when I was in Europe and in Australia, I was like, oh my gosh, this tastes so good. Yeah. Our stuff, our candy's not tasting as great as it used to be.
It tastes like wax to me.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not good. But I think that nostalgia trip of,
Yeah.
you know, I'm automatically going to like this thing because I
Yeah.
enjoyed it when I was a kid is just not accurate.
Yeah.
But I have a question
Yeah.
for you. So what motivates you to have this need to reconnect? I mean, what do you think, you personally, but also just in the larger question of like, why do we like to reconnect to old loves?
Well, I think that for me, it's always, I like to reflect a lot, just to kind of, you know, what am I going through, that kind of thing. But it's also, I realized that when I became an adult, I let some things go because I had to be an adult and responsible and do certain things. And so I let those loves, like they weren't important. I kind of let them slide. And other things became more important, like, you know, making sure my son's brushing his teeth and, going to work and keeping them happy and that kind of thing. And so I let those parts of myself, either I did them to the point that I didn't want to do them anymore, or I just didn't have the time for it. And so now I'm like, I want to do the things I enjoy. I want to prioritize joy. And in order for me to do that, I need to reflect back and think about those things. And one easy way to do that is to reflect back on what you used to do and question, why did you stop?
Oh, I think that's great. And I think that looking back at yourself and your childhood and what you enjoyed as a child can really be revealing. Like what did you set aside when you quote unquote became an adult because it wasn't either appropriate for you anymore or it didn't fit in within your schedule or why ever you set it aside, because those were fundamentally important to you then.
Right.
They very well may be important to you now.
Right.
And it's a little window into your soul.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, we're all kids.
Yeah.
You know, inside, we all have this little kid inside who still needs to find that joy.
But the reality is that some of those things we just can't do. Like I would spend hours on the swings. I would hours and hours on the swings. I cannot swing now. I mean, I will swing a little bit like here, there, but if I do like full on, like I was like, let me see how much I can get to the top, I will be throwing up because I get motion sick now. So there's some things I just can't do, but it can make me say, now what did I love about that? And can I tap that in a different way?
Exactly. Like riding a bike. I mean, you and your son both have bikes now.
We love riding bikes.
Yeah.
It's like feels like we're flying going downhill. It's so lovely. Yeah. So definitely we found a way to do that. But there's, again, if you can't do that thing, maybe find out what is it that I loved about it and how can I reintroduce that feeling in some different way.
I think that's beautiful.
episode, we've been talking about reconnecting with things that we used to love in some way. So whether it's music or movies or a thing we used to love to do, taking the time to think, hey, why did I love to do this and why did I stop? And is there a way that I can bring it back? So any big takeaways that you've gotten from this episode so far, Seth?
I think probably one of the biggest takeaways is, trying to make my brain, kind of again, saying that intention that I do want to go travel out west. I want to revisit some of the places I went as a child. My parents, sacrificed a whole lot to take us on those really extended vacations.
Yeah.
And I just don't have a real sense of memory of them because I was so young, especially on the first one. 8 is not super young, but again, I was not into landscapes at 8 years old. I wanted to read my books. So I'd love to redo that part of my life.
So I want to travel as well. I've talked about that several times, and then connect my son to those old movies because I love movies. That's what I studied, and especially movies that kind of change the language of how we talk about things in film and in our culture. I want to keep introducing him to that. And the reality is that some are going to be great, and some are going to be like, oh, well, this has, a lot of 80s references that he's not going to get, or 70s references, and whatever. So getting over that, but now's the time to kind of reconnect with those things and do those things, and in some form or fashion. So if you've been thinking about reconnecting with an old love, like think about those things that you love to do. Question like, hey, why did I stop? And should I kind of bring it back? Because it's important. Joy is important. You got to prioritize it.
Yeah. And you can find all kinds of fun little nuggets when you start digging through the past.
Oh, yeah.
So if you haven't followed us on social media, we are on Facebook, we are on TikTok, we are on Instagram, and we're on YouTube. And so we want you to hit all the buttons.
Yeah.
We want you to follow. We want you to subscribe. You want to be our friend, do all of those things. And we do want you to interact with us because it really means a lot when we hear from you, when we know what's going on in your mind. It not only makes us feel like we're touching, a part of your life, but it also gives us ideas of what you're interested in hearing about. Yeah. Today we were talking about old loves. So what are you in love with? What were the things that you did as a child that you are now rediscovering in your life? And thanks for listening, y'all. Thank you for joining us for Free Range Flock. Our goal is to inspire and celebrate who we are, the Generation X kids who grew up and decided to do things their way, with grace, humor, and joy. This has been a production of Sassy Am. If you want to learn more about our podcast, follow our blog, share your positive insights about being a free ranger, or to suggest topics or guests for future episodes, please visit our website at sassayam.com. That's SASSAYAM.com. Keep pushing.